Okay, can you hear me? Thank you.
Yes, yes, go ahead.
A question for Professor Brown. Thank you very much. How do we propagate what Brandeis University did on this discrimination of caste to other universities in the United States? Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Brandeis has a lot of information and understanding about the Dalit struggle. I do think it's very important to publicize that. And I do think that the Cisco case is going to give Dalits an opportunity to publicize the kind of discrimination that's going on, because what you're working against is simply, as an American, we simply don't understand Hinduism. We know it at a very broad level, but we don't understand the actual workings of it. The other issue that Dalits face is the reality that the overwhelming majority of Indians in the United States are caste Hindus. And caste Hindus tend to appreciate the discrimination that Dalits continue to face. I've had them in my classes. Virtually all of them say, yes, we used to discriminate against Dalits, but that's no longer the case. Things have changed. So what you're really battling is sort of an informational vacuum, where the overwhelming sense is, I don't know a lot about the caste system. If I do, and I do understand there was discrimination based on untouchability, that's now in the past. So I would say the thing to do is just continue to publicize the discrimination.
My question is for Dr. Brown. It's like a two-part question. One part is, if you look at the Cisco case, the discrimination comes, or the harassment starts from the use of affirmative action by John Doe. So there are a lot of parallels, because most of the caste Hindus have very insulting view of affirmative action, which they are probably also extending to the American people who have used affirmative action before. So can there be some kind of a joint some sort of a joint pushback against this kind of upper caste Hindu mindset? That's part one. The other part is when you mentioned that this specific case of a gay man that was taken by Supreme Court, the culprit in the Cisco case can say that I wasn't talking at all about caste, but I was questioning the merit. So they have converted this old orthodox religion based discrimination to a more secular form of discrimination. So how do we navigate that? So, sorry, it's a very confusing question, but yeah, this is my question.
Yeah, there's no question, and I've dealt with enough employment discrimination cases. The employer's argument has to be, I would have arrived at this decision regardless of a person's race, regardless of a person's gender, regardless of a person, in this case, caste. So that argument that the decision's really about merit, not about caste, is what every employer is going to argue when the employer is being accused of discrimination. That's something that will work itself out in the litigation process. So there's sort of two issues here, right? There's the individual issue in Cisco. Was that individual Dalit discriminated against based on caste? But there's a much bigger issue here, and that is whether or not caste discrimination itself is illegal under Title VII, our employment discrimination law. That bigger issue is the one that I think Dalits have a very good legal argument that they can make on. Dalits are in a much better position to make that legal argument since that Supreme Court decision on June 20th in the case of Bostock versus Clayton County. So the first thing I would say is I would not worry too much about the fact that the employer is going to say the reason for the discharge had nothing to do with caste. That's what you should expect. On the second, then, sort of African American Indian relationships writ large. For the African American community, right, there's still this realization that, you know, Dr. King learned nonviolence from Gandhi. So we have a kind of alliance or working agreement with Indians. And unless one takes a deep dive into the caste system and how it functions, many Blacks are sitting here saying, well, we see Indians as allies regardless of caste. And that's the battle that you're also fighting, because if I think about, you know, I'm someone who's connected to the Dalit community in the United States, but if I were not, the Indians I talk to are caste Hindus, and none of them have said that untouchability and discrimination based on untouchability is a problem today the way it was 50, 60 years ago.
Thank you.
Nishant's question, I would post this to both the speakers because I don't think he has pointed out which speaker this question was for. So his question is, if anti-caste discrimination policies are indeed adopted by multinational companies in America, what scope does it present for legally challenging caste-based discrimination in private employment in India?
Oh, wow.
Dr. Paik, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I would just like to say that, yes, we have had this struggle where private employers in India are still not recognizing the existence of caste discrimination. So hopefully the Cisco case and, you know, the struggle that we are, this historic context and this struggle that we are fighting against, hopefully at least, you know, when the issue is transnationalized and, you know, the issue has moved beyond India, that the private companies in India will finally start to recognize the problem. I can just hope for this because, you know, we are seeing this, you know, battle for a very long time where, you know, private companies have engaged in these practices. There are studies which show as to how these companies have, for example, you know, practiced discrimination in a number of ways, trying to identify the last names of people, and that is how they're trying to get to caste backgrounds or the place where people are residing. So, you know, yes, housing segregation, and they're trying to find out the caste backgrounds of these people. And that is how they have tried to exclude them, marginalize them in a variety of ways. So I think these cases, you know, internationally will certainly have some kind of an impact.
Yeah. And I think I would pretty much agree. This is going to be a huge issue, as you can imagine, in American employment law. And there's going to be a tremendous pushback against this interpretation of Bostock versus Clayton County. And I therefore suspect that the legal process will take 2 to 3 years before we get even a district court opinion. But given that Bostock case, the issue that you have to decide as a district court to determine whether or not there's discrimination is simply this. If I change the race of a Dalit, would that person still be discriminated against? And if the answer to that question is no, if I made that Dalit white, they would not be discriminated against, then under this interpretation of American employment discrimination law, that would be discrimination based on race. I don't think it'll make much of a difference in the way the Indian courts interpret their discrimination law. It may make an impact in the way the UK does it. The UK's equality law right now has a provision to ban caste that has not been brought into effect, but it already has a provision to ban discrimination based on race. So the argument in the UK would be, should UK courts follow this interpretation of race discrimination that the US courts may buy into? But in India, I think more is going to be required.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Thank you, Dr. Paik. I think we had Balamurli Natarajan raise his hand. There was someone else who had also raised their hand. I don't see it raised anymore. So I will ask Balamurli to speak up. And if you had Jai Suraj, you can go next. Balamurli, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks to both the speakers for very rich and provocative talks. My question is for Professor Paik. Help us understand how the struggle against caste cannot proceed without a struggle against patriarchy. And I want to ask this, in this specificity, because all too often we have heard about fighting one and only later fighting the other and things like that. Whereas in effect, what your talk and your writings over a long period of time, along with so many others, have shown that, there is something called caste patriarchy. So help us, lay it out a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Murli. So we all know, or, this, I think these talks are very helpful, that they help us, unpack certain categories and, the structures. So for example, so in this particular case, the feudal caste patriarchy, that is what I'm going to say, so right? So very clearly we can see as to how caste, the structure itself, it oppresses, certain communities. So especially women. So so the way the structure is built, we can see that it is an entanglement, or, as critical race theorists have theorized, the intersection of caste, gender, and sexuality. So it is women who we see are oppressed in particular ways because of this structure. And so that is why, especially when we see that women coming from particular communities, especially here, the lower caste and Dalit communities, they are oppressed not only as women belonging to these communities, so for being Dalit, but also because they are women. So that is how the patriarchal structure of caste oppresses these women. And that is how what I have theorized as the double discrimination of these women. So women, as being gendered female, and women who are also Dalit. So that is how the feudal caste patriarchal structure actually functions. This, as Ambedkar, writes this text in 1916 to talk about this oppression of caste. He calls it Caste in India, the mechanism. So this is the mechanism in which we see that caste operates in order to oppress certain, oppress women, yes, of all castes, and in particular, women belonging to Dalit castes.
I'd also like to add to that. So I've led 3 different groups of academics to India to work and talk and compare the African American struggle with the Dalit struggle. And I've led 3 other groups of students to do the same. All of the women who I've led to India have talked about the patriarchy that they see in the Dalit community. And when people come and talk to me and ask me, what do you think is the biggest potential obstacle to a Dalit African American alliance? I would say it's the patriarchy within the Dalit community. It looks very different as an African American growing up in the United States, where for all practical purposes, our women dominate academic institutions. So if you're a male here, you understand that the Black women are going to be given equal voice on the stage. They're going to be paid attention to. They're just as likely, indeed probably more likely, to be the leaders of our organizations. That's not the case in the Dalit community. And it means that we would be having Dalit men interacting with African American women who are perceiving these interactions through a lens where they're concerned about patriarchy that the Dalit men are not seeing. So I would urge my fellow Dalit males out there to really try to pay attention to situations that you might think are patriarchal and make a comment, try to change it.
Yeah, just to reinforce, thank you, Professor Brown. So, when I talked about the larger structure, I was talking about the public patriarchy. But yes, in my talk, just to go back very quickly, it's a double patriarchy that we see that is functioning here. So it is the public patriarchy, the larger one that I talked about, and also the private patriarchy that is something that Dalit women face in their own communities, in their own families, right? So we clearly have to, fight against this double oppression of these 2, at least here in this particular case, and yes, different overlapping patriarchies. And we see that, yes, caste, provides this leverage to Savarnas to oppress women and also look upon as Dalit men as emasculated, as, not being able to protect their women. But at the same time, we go deeper, we also see that inside Dalit households, it is Dalit men who are, practicing a similar. So we see a reproduction of this patriarchal structure inside Dalit homes. And that is something that Dalit men should, recognize and, fight against these structures.
Sorry, I was not able to unmute my microphone for a second. Thank you, Dr. Paik, Dr. Brown. The next person we have is Kaliswaran.
Yes. Can you hear me? Hello,
yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for organizing this. It's a great topic, and we have been thank you also for IKSC for organizing such important topics for the time. I just want to give you one quick background, and also wanted to ask my question. The quick background, Dr. Brown, because you're not from India, so in India there is one state where putting the caste as a last name is completely olden time. Only one state, where other states where normally the caste name or family name is kept as a last name. So it's general practice. So I'm coming from that state because there was a revolutionary leaders for last 60, 70 years fought a lot to make the caste is completely invisible, even though there are caste discriminations happen there a lot as like other states, but the calling with a name or with the specifying a person's caste is a discriminatory offense, the people can go to file the lawsuit. That offensive it is. My question here is, but the caste practices are kept as a religious practice, and also in the recent times you can see in Indian political, and also the people are talking about bringing Indian culture to the US, right? And they are started practicing here very in a strong foot here, and we are being here, we are worried that the caste practices slowly will come into the US as well, and the next generation, like the kids and the grandkids, will get affected in the next as we go here. I see people started under the name of religious cultural practices, bringing back the caste names, and also slowly start in the Cisco case is another an example. People started identifying the caste and then asking which family you are, and which if there are different ways to identify a person's caste. In the state where I'm coming from, they cannot ask the openly the caste name, but there is a different ways. People here started asking those questions to identify which caste as somebody, and started using that as a maybe allowing them to get a promotion in the job, or recommendations or whatever, right? So that may slowly started happening under the name of religious or cultural practice. So how do we in the US law, how do we make sure this discrimination is started slowly growing? We may not see these things happen right now, but in 5 to 10 years or 10 to 20 years, we may see more happening. So how do we make sure the people here understand that, especially the white and black people in America, understand this kind of discrimination started happening in the Indian community, and make it a bigger education, so that people are all supporting who are being discriminated in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question and a great series of questions. So let me start by going back to the Cisco case, because I've had some conversations with law professor friends of mine, and have thought about this too. The only way you can make a discrimination claim if you're a Dalit, so let's say we go through this process, American law accepts the argument that discrimination against Dalits is in fact race discrimination. But the only way you can make that argument is that the person has to know you're a Dalit. So I know there's this other way of dealing with the discrimination where one hides the fact that one is a Dalit and therefore won't be a victim of the discrimination. That of course works against the notion of it being the basis of one's negative treatment in employment. And so and I would say, perhaps the other thing I think I would say, and I had a conversation with my good friend Lalit Kandari, who's a professor at Pacific University, where he's telling me that within the United States, there are, within the Christian community of Indians in the United States, different churches for Dalits from caste Hindus. For Americans, that would be shocking to believe. Americans have this long history of equating Christianity with equality. That something like that would be absolutely shocking. And it would be a way to publicize the existence of this discrimination here on US soil. Now I can see the problem that if let's say we go through the legal process, Cisco wins, there's no sense of discrimination against Dalits being a category which you can sue for employment discrimination. Well, then hiding your identity makes sense because there's no other legal protection. And that was sort of the way it was with gays and lesbians in the United States. They hid their identity because there was no legal protection. Once they got legal protection, then there was no reason to hide their identity, because if someone discriminated against them based on it, they could sue.
Thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Brown.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
The next question is from Harshal. Harshal, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I just, we understand that we have a problem as a Dalit man, we have a problem about the patriarchy, but I'm not sure the term we use a Dalit patriarchy. So if Dr. Shailaja can explain whether it is appropriate to use the word a Dalit patriarchy, because we have never seen that there is a black patriarchy or any oppressed community patriarchy and all.
Yeah, sure. So when I'm saying I have been very careful in my research and even in my talk today, and I said patriarchy among Dalit communities. So it's certainly patriarchy, Dalit patriarchy maybe lends a different color, flavor to it. And so it also raises the question of as to what is so special about Dalit patriarchy. So maybe I'll just turn it around and say, I'm talking about patriarchy inside Dalit communities. I hope that would be helpful.
No, I'm not saying you use that word and all. I'm saying nowadays many people are using those words. So that's what I wanted to check.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to, I am trying to clarify it by saying that one thing is there is nothing special about Dalit, the category Dalit patriarchy as such. It is a patriarchy among Dalit communities, by which I mean the male domination and the oppression of, Dalit women inside their own homes. That is what we mean by this structural oppression of patriarchy. And so in my work over the last 20 years, my first book and articles that I have published, as well as my talk today, this is what I'm saying, that women are, because Dalit men feel that women are going to fracture their movement. This is exactly what Black men felt when they were organizing and Black women were voicing their opinions and talking about the discrimination. This is what both Dalit men and Black men felt, that these women are airing dirty laundry in public. And that is the reason they were silencing them, marginalizing them, excluding them. So we have, Dalit women who are speaking out against this oppression from men inside the community and talking about as to, how they are, have to fight against this patriarchy inside the household, as well as patriarchy outside. So you have Savarna men, targeting Dalit women, and we have Dalit men are also exploiting and abusing women.
Thank you, Dr.
Is that
Paik. Harshal, did that help?
Yes, that it clarifies it. Thanks a lot, Dr. Shailaja.
Okay, next we have Meena. Meena, would you be able to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Right, yes. I had asked this question to Kevin, and it is in the context of a legal case in UK as well that have been fought and not successfully won. So the situation in the UK is that we still actually do not have a law. So it's not that we have a law and it's not implemented. It was halted in the process of coming into being. So there had to be a secondary legislation. That secondary legislation has been paused. The ministers have absolutely no interest in bringing the law in. There's lots of opposition from upper caste Hindus and Sikhs to the bringing into being of caste as a part of the Equality Act. And so right at the moment it's a stalemate. And alongside there's a case law which has happened, and the government wants people to use that as a precedent to fight their cases and don't want caste mentioned in the Equality Act. So caste is supposed to be, there's an obligation that ministers must make caste an aspect of race, but the government is interested in tearing that back. So that's the situation in the UK. We'll talk about it, I think, more next week. The legal friend Annapurna will be speaking about it. But my question was, and I will also speak, but on different aspects of how we understand caste. But my question was that in this present case, in the Cisco case that we are, I've read the case as it's presented for the moment. It says that caste is as seen as including many different things: religion, ancestry, national origin, ethnicity, race, color. So my question was, do you think out of these categories, any one is more likely to fit the character of caste? Because that's quite a crucial thing. In the UK case, it's quite crucial. Some people are suggesting it should be seen as ethnicity, and other people think that doesn't work. And in practice, actually, it can actually fall down. UK law doesn't include descent. At the UN level, it does. So there are all sorts of possibilities internationally, but from your, I don't understand the Title 7 at all, but it would be really helpful to know if you think because that we have to get to a definition of caste, which is then more transferable. We are able to talk about it in a way that more and more in international jurisdictions, it is possible then to fit into a category. So I want to know from you, where do you think this might fall?
Sure. So let me start by, in Cisco, you have one case brought under California law, and then separate under Title 7, which is the federal law. Under the California law, among the categories that are protected traits are ancestry. Ancestry is not a protected trait under Title 7. So there's a potential strong argument under California law that what you're dealing with when you're dealing with caste-based discrimination is it's discrimination based on ancestry, or a form of discrimination based on ancestry. You cannot make that argument under Title 7. Now, for purposes of Title 7, the Supreme Court in this June 20th, 2020 opinion, so we're talking about an opinion that's only about 6 weeks old, in a way eliminated the question of, is caste discrimination analogous to race discrimination, and simply said the real question here is, if we change the race, do we change whether or not the person's discriminated against? If the answer is yes, change the Dalit to white, that's race discrimination. If the answer is no, change the Dalits' religion from Hinduism to Buddhism, so you don't change the discrimination, then the discrimination is not based on religion. So the Supreme Court has really provided a different framework in which to talk about this case now. And under that framework, it does seem to me that the strongest argument is going to be on race, that the arguments for Title 7 have to be either race, sex, national origin, religion, or color. And it seems of those 5 categories, the race is going to be the strongest argument, because if I change a light-skinned Dalit to a dark-skinned Dalit, would that person still be discriminated against in the same way? If the answer is yes, then it's not color. If I change a Dalit's religion, but they'll still be discriminated against, then that's not going to be religious discrimination. But if I change their race from Indian, or what we would call Asian, to white, then that would eliminate the discrimination. So ancestry is not a protected trait under Title 7, but it is a protected trait for California, and hence provides another argument under California law that this is illegal discrimination that does not exist under the federal law.
Can I just quickly follow up? Can I follow up?
Sure.
Okay, so that's really interesting because that's precisely has been the from the other side, the objection, for example, the Indian government objection to seeing caste as race, going back to Durban. There's so much resistance to seeing it in that way. Perhaps because one knows that they know that it is a very potentially a big thing if caste does come to be seen as an aspect of race. Likewise, also the objections in UK that you know, everyone who is interested in keeping caste out of legal battles will want to resist caste ever being seen as an aspect of race. So I'm just making a comment, really, not a question. That I think that seems to me that in every way that therefore that anyone who argues that casteism is like racism is also in for attacks from those who don't want to say something as it's not racism.
Yeah, well, this is because to a certain extent, the American position, taking it off Bostock, would effectively say the question of whether caste is race or a subset of race is not really the question. The question is, if you change the race of a person, would you still have this discrimination?
So is it a counterfactual then?
Oh, there's no question it's a counterfactual. There's no question about that at all. But the counterfactual is, take this Dalit person and now make this Dalit person a different race. So it's not a question about whether or not that being a Dalit is a race or discriminating against a Dalit is race discrimination. It is change the Dalit's race. Does that eliminate the discrimination? If it does, then it's race discrimination. But it's not, it doesn't answer the question of whether being a Dalit is in of itself a separate race.
No, I don't think that I was arguing that it is a separate race. Certainly caste is not race, but I was thinking that seeing it as race is a different thing. Seeing it as race, as in seeing casteism as racism. It's in that sense. It is like race. So that discrimination that happens on the basis of caste is like the discrimination that happens on the basis of race. Not that caste is race. Okay. I don't think so.
Well, let me try it a different way, because effectively what we're talking about now then becomes a legal argument, not a political argument. So it's not one that you've got to get legislators to agree to. It's one that you've got to get judges to agree to. And certainly in America, it would take a long time to develop a general understanding that there is something wrong with caste discrimination because Americans don't understand it yet. But if you take this one step, where we're now able to say discrimination against a Dalit is illegal for employment purposes, that is a step, but it is an important step on the road to a general recognition of caste discrimination.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. We have one last question. There are more questions, but we will take one last question. And after that, anybody who didn't get a chance to ask their question, please feel free to email akscsfba@gmail.com, and Karthik and Kanak will figure out how to get a reply back to you. We have Raja Swami who asked a question in the chat early on. Raja, I know you've been making multiple comments. You have one question to ask. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you for a very enlightening Saturday afternoon. Thank you to Drs. Paik and Dr. Brown for enlightening us and providing insightful thoughts and ideas and reflections, as well as in terms of how Karthik put it, in terms of moving this towards a more practical set of possibilities. I was wondering if either or both speakers could say something about the problem of the model minority myth, because it appears that caste Hindus benefit tremendously, as do many minority immigrant groups that come to the United States. We benefit tremendously from the model minority myth. And in as much as the model minority myth is grounded in a kind of anti-blackness, it seems to be kind of a good platform around which solidarities can be built to oppose both white supremacy and Brahminism in one kind of platform. I was wondering if either or both speakers had any thoughts around the model minority myth and what we can do going forward to fight it.
Wow. I'll let you go first.
I think the model minority myth really needs to be punctured. And, you know, this is exactly what we are seeing in the political moment. And the last 3 to 4 years, with how this model minority has tried to cash in on a number of issues with immigration laws, right? And this is, as you very correctly pointed out, this is how Indians as a whole are looked upon. But this myth is also constructed by, by this pointed attack on Blacks and other oppressed, marginalized, like for example, the Latinos in the US. So the myth is true only for certain Indians. And this is the time where we need to really, as I said, puncture this myth, because it does not hold true for all Indians at all. And the Cisco case, is a perfect example to explode this myth now. And so that is how we need to annihilate caste, by exploding this myth, yes, in the US.
Yeah, and maybe just a couple of really quick comments. So take the Chinese, because the Chinese were the first large group of Asians to immigrate to the United States, and that starts in the 1840s and really picks up in the 1850s. And if you go back and you look at the literature that developed about it, this anti-Chinese sentiment, it was sort of based on this notion of the model minority, that they actually outwork the whites. And just because they were model workers, what it really then created was this tremendous backlash by white working class that felt like they were losing jobs to the Chinese. So on the one hand, model minority may sound like a good myth if you benefit from it, but it's also a statement that you are not American, and that your national origin can be subject to immigration restrictions, which we're clearly seeing the Trump administration moving towards right now.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I think that will be the last question we took. There was a suggestion that if anybody had any other questions, I would just read it out, but I haven't seen any questions. Dr. Paik, would you like to begin closing comments, and then I will hand that to Dr. Brown?
Yes, surely. Thank you very much, Sujata, for your wonderful job on this session. So I just very quickly, my concluding thoughts. I really think this is very important because one of the agenda, the most important agenda here is to educate Americans, and people who are invested in fighting against race, caste, gender, class, and sex and sexuality. So these, all of these come together, with these, with this platform that you have opened to debate caste. And, it can be done only by doing this, that we can annihilate caste. So one is the example that Brandeis has set up. And, Brandeis and, a number of institutions have been involved in opening, in having these discussions, in inviting scholars and activists from both the Black as well as, Dalit communities, and having these exchanges. So that has led Brandeis to come up, with this statement against caste discrimination on US campuses. And this is something where other universities can, learn from this experiment, and also engage with this dialogue. And this is how we can take this exchange to university campuses, to the youth that we teach and we engage with, in order to build sustainable futures that we are interested in. And that also means we have to fight against this mechanism of caste and, the patriarchy that is very much a spine of all of this. So this is how we see that Savarna women and Dalit women are being oppressed. We also see as to, and that is what I was speaking about, the public patriarchy, but also how women face domestic violence, even, inside Dalit communities. And so this is the moment where we need to talk about these issues so that we can learn, recognize them, and fight against them. So thank you very much, everybody.
And then I will say, certainly, what I was trying to do in my talk about the African American community and its relationship to discrimination on the Indian subcontinent was really to draw your attention to, first off, the analogy of the Black situation to caste is almost 200 years old. So we already have a language that we can set up to talk about a relationship between Dalits and African Americans in the caste analogy. It's just that when Americans practice that caste analogy, they typically didn't go deep into the caste system. For us, it was enough to say caste is a violation of American notions of individualism, meritocracy, and equality. So we're now effectively saying, look, we just need to go deeper into that analogy, into the caste analogy. What occurred between the caste analogy and today was this notion of a global alliance of people of color against white supremacy. And that created for us alliances with the Indian freedom fighters. But I think you could start with the reception that Donald Trump received when he came to India to prove to African Americans that old alliance and relationship with Indian freedom fighters, who then become leaders of the Indian government, is clearly in the past. The images of 125,000 Indians screaming for Donald Trump was very unsettling over here for African Americans. But from the standpoint of Dalits, it says, yes, there is a difference between us and the caste Hindus that you saw embracing Donald Trump. So I think there's a tremendous basis there for us to cooperate with each other. We just have to use the right language that sort of brings that long-standing 200 years into play. And with that, I guess I want to thank you for giving me the chance to talk, and I want to thank the organizers as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. Thank you so much, Dr. Paik. This was really, really immersive, informative talk. I personally enjoyed it tremendously and learned so much, and I hope the rest in the audience have done as well. And I would like to thank AKSC for the series of really superbly thought out and curated talks, which stemmed from the Cisco case, but has really helped us in organizing and thinking and conversing about it. I thank you, AKSC, for having given me the opportunity to moderate the talk today. Thank you very much.